Well, looks like we're on the internet. Hey Chads, that gaming author here, and welcome to a stream for my favorite game of all time. Let me go ahead, or one of my favorite games. Goodness, that's a bold assumption to assume that just one game is my favorite. Regardless, let's go ahead and jump back in. Let me make sure you guys can hear the game audio. Looks like it's rather quiet. Now I'll make sure everything's balanced, and right now, our primary goal here is to basically turn the Final Fantasy IX crew into what I'm calling the Power Crew, by over-leveling them before we progress with the story. Because as of now, we officially have every single party member available to us. Final Fantasy IX was my first RPG? I don't think so. It's more like my third RPG. It was my first 3D Final Fantasy game, is what I should say. I played it back when I was 14 years old. And let me turn up the volume on my mic a little bit. Hopefully you guys can hear me a little clearer. But anyway, I got this game when I was like 14, and we got a PS1 alongside it. And I was super excited because I'd seen clips from this game, and friends of mine even told me it was better than Final Fantasy VII, so I'm like, oh crap, I gotta play that now. So I got it for my 14th birthday along with the PS1, and I was super hyped to play it, and I played the crap out of it too. At the time, I was only allowed to play video games for a certain amount of time, but after that, essentially, like, because of, like, my parents wanted me to focus on like school and everything, which I totally understand as an adult. But at the time, I was only allowed to play on the weekends, so I would spend every weekend playing this game. I spent 4 weekends playing this game, and on every single weekend, I beat one of the 4 discs that the PS1 version contained. And I actually got really far too. But at the same time, I was still new to the RPG genre, so what ended up happening was that I got to the end of the game, I turned out to be rather under-leveled, and I couldn't beat the final boss as a result. It was a major oversight on my end, but at the same time, I was a kid. I was still new to RPGs. I didn't quite understand the concept at the time. So to me, like, level grinding was a bit of a foreign concept. But nowadays, as you can see by this stream, level grinding is basically what we're doing. And at this point, you know, I don't really mind it. It's nice and chill to just relax and enjoy the process. Alright. Don't think everything will work the way it's supposed to, but you know what? That's perfectly fine. Alright, come on, destroy all of them. And imagine bugs like these in real life. I think I said that in one of my previous Final Fantasy IX streams, but those guys are massive. I couldn't imagine seeing things like that in real life. Oh shoot, I did not pay attention to Zidon's health. We really need to heal him. That's always an issue of mine when I play RPGs. I get way too into it, and then I just, I ultimately forget that everyone's HP is slowly dwindling, especially when level grinding. In this game, for some reason, defense is a very low stat for everyone, basically. And it does not make the game very easy. So, enemies end up hitting super hard. I mean, we just destroyed those guys. But enemies end up hitting super hard, and our HP goes down ridiculously low. So, that's why I just need to remember to keep an eye out on HP. I'm also trying to conserve Dagger's MP, which I really don't need to do, because she's got MP for days. But still. This is the most level grinding I think I've ever done in this game. Because when I first got to the end of the game, when I had the PS1 version, I think I was only around level 29 or something ridiculously small like that. I don't even remember what level I was, but I just remember getting destroyed at the end of the game, basically running from every fight. And in this game, we're going to change that. We're going to make sure that we have the power crew here, and that everyone is at a decent level. And I don't think I'll get everyone's ultimate weapons, but that would be a really nice thing if we were able to. Alright, Steiner, where's your turn? There we go. Thankfully, everyone has Thunder Gauntlets equipped, so basically whenever those enemies cast Thunder, or Thundara, it's healing us, so that's pretty great. It's like, hey, thanks. I could have used that. I mean, you know, we have a white mage on our party, but you know, healing is so much sweeter when it's the enemy doing it to you. You get what I mean? Enemy use electric magic. Zidon's Volt Absorb ability activated. You know it. That's basically what happens in this game when you have the Thunder Gauntlets equipped. It's fantastic. Did Zidon just kill that guy in one shot? If so, that's amazing. So this game is definitely not for everyone, I'd say. I've definitely met quite a few people who didn't like some of the stylistic choices done in this game or some of the narrative choices, but if there's one thing I can recommend this game for, it would absolutely be the soundtrack. I think even Nobuo Uematsu himself once said that out of all the Final Fantasy games he'd done music for, this was his favorite out of the ones that he did. And I can totally understand why. My personal favorite's Final Fantasy VI's soundtrack, but this is definitely a close second. I think this was designed to be a throwback to the original Final Fantasies, because after Final Fantasy VI, the game started getting more sci-fi, like we had 7 and 8, and they were both more realistic settings. And since this game was essentially the end of an era and it was going to be released in the new millennium, I think they were like, you know what, let's revisit our roots and make this like a traditional fantasy game. Excuse me. So they made it a classic 4-party team, each with their own fitting job classes, that all appear in previous previous Zelda games, my goodness, that appear in previous Final Fantasy games. So we have Zidane the Thief, Steiner's our Knight, Dagger's our White Mage, and Freya is our Dragoon. And once we touch upon some of the other characters, I'll go ahead and specify what job classes they have as well. The final Legend of Zelda, Nintendo's last Zelda game. Yeah, right? And imagine it having like some crazy convoluted plot like a Final Fantasy game, but like it's all the characters you expect to see in a Zelda game. You've got freaking Ganon, Link, Zelda. Man, the Dissidia games are so fun. I just wish I wasn't so terrible, because my main issue with that game is that, or with those games, is that the matches just go on forever, it seems. Alright, Steiner, where are you? There you are. The matches just go on for so long, so it's like, there's so much room for you to just die. It's like, okay, cool. I'm totally fine with Feral Chaos charging up 9,999 attack to wipe me out in one shot. Super. I will admit, the PS4 Dissidia is definitely my least favorite. I do love elements of it. Like, I love the fact that they included Noctis and Arden, and they even have characters like Rinoa, Locke from Final Fantasy VI. They even have freaking Ramza from Final Fantasy Tactics, but at the end of the day, just the team-based gameplay doesn't really sit well with me. I definitely preferred Dissidia when it was like one-on-one. I've been wanting to stream Dissidia one day. I'm just terrible at the game. So I just haven't really felt like streaming it, like especially if I didn't feel I was going to play at my best. Or I guess I shouldn't say I'm terrible at the game. I just have difficulty with some of the optional fights. Like the reports you get, which are like a lore, or like a little side story that explains how Cosmos and Chaos kind of came to be, and who Cosmos was before she became a goddess and everything like that. It's actually very similar to the story of Gigu and Maria from Earthbound Zero. Like, or I suppose Gygus is his actual name, but they called him Gigu in the official translation. But it's kind of that story, where kind of like in the original game, Maria ended up, like, George and Maria were studying, like, I don't know, what was it, like interdimensional stuff or whatever? And then George came back, but Maria never returned, and she found Gigu kind of as a child and took care of him. And then Gigu lost her, and I think, and like, but the song you sing him, like the melodies, that's Maria's song. And I think that, like, and that's why it weakens him, because it reminds him, like, it makes him vulnerable and reminds him of a time when he wasn't, you know, crazy evil. But it's kind of like that. So Cosmos was originally a researcher, along with the Lufanian Cid from Final Fantasy I, who is basically God. And she ended up finding like this demonic creature who eventually became Chaos, and I think she like grew an attachment to him and became like a mother figure to him. I don't remember the full story, but I remember them eventually splitting apart and not having a relationship anymore like they used to. I could be totally wrong though, because it's been years since I played it. I just remember drawing the parallels between Cosmos and Chaos and the story of Maria and Gigu. Alright, your friendly neighborhood serial killer has returned. So, let's continue committing mass murder. Oh, I love how this guy inflicts Berserk, hoping to have you attack so he can counter, but at the same time, our party is so much stronger, so why do that? All I care about is sheer power and murder. That's what we're all here for, right? A victory to the motherland, or something like that. This is the RPG experience, my friends. Going around, killing everything in sight, and making sure your characters are ridiculously overpowered for the inevitable difficulty curve later on in the game. There we go. Oh, no, okay, that's what we meant. Alright, well, time to button mash through it. Ooh, Freya just dealt 777 damage. You get an achievement for that in Xenoblade. No achievements in this version, though, because we're playing the Switch version. Well, technically it's the mobile version and it's on the Switch, but you know what I mean. I complained a lot earlier about my gripes with this being the mobile version, but honestly, putting all the complaints aside, this is a pretty solid port, I'll admit. The fact that you can fast forward and just have everything go by so much faster makes level grinding like this not at all feel as much of a chore as it used to feel. Because when you play this game at its normal speed, battles go by so slowly, and on top of that, your movement speed is slow. Like, I think this is considered to be the gameplay-wise, the slowest Final Fantasy. Gameplay-wise, not story-wise, because this game's story is very strong, and I absolutely love it. But the gameplay, it moves so sluggishly, and it really doesn't have to. But I think that's why they included this feature. Though thinking about it from a developer's perspective, that could be an intentional design, for one of maybe either two reasons. I'm sure there are more, but these are the reasons that came to my mind. Maybe one reason is because of hardware limitations and how much they put into this game. And then the second is that, potentially, these guys, like, maybe they felt the story was too short, so they wanted to make up for the game length by making the fights take longer. And by making exploring the world feel bigger, because compared to the Final Fantasy VII world, this game's world kind of feels a little small. I mean, there are reasons why that becomes a moot point later on, but when you compare this game's world, which does not take very long at all to explore, to the world of Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VII's overworld is massive. The first time I played the game and actually got out of Midgar for the first time, I was shocked by how much there was. And, like, once I started going to Cosmo Canyon and, like, the Golden Saucer, I was like, wow, this world is huge. And that's why I was so baffled when I heard that they were remaking the original game, or when they were remaking the game and making it like a 2-scale sort of thing. And I can totally understand why they only have Midgar, because Midgar is a very big city. So if they were making it to scale, they definitely have to be careful about, like, hardware limitations and everything. But who knows? With the advancements in video game technology, I have the feeling that future installments in the Final Fantasy VII Remake will be massive and will be much longer than the one we have. Something tells me that the Final Fantasy remake, the Final Fantasy VII remake we have, is basically just a demo compared to what we may get in the future. That's just optimistic thinking, but hey, I'm all about that. Optimistic thinking's my thing, man. We're in the middle of a pandemic and the West Coast is burning down. You gotta think optimistically about something. Anyway, I think that's gonna be good for the stream tonight. Well, I don't know, I do kind of feel like just having a hangout stream. Just having music on in the background and relaxing and just hanging out. And at the same time, my voice is getting tired, so maybe it is gonna be it for me. Anyway, thank you for coming to the stream, that was definitely awesome. I'm hoping to do this more frequently. I'm hoping to eventually get back to Persona 5 Royal. And with that, I will see you next time.